We have a tradition, stone soup. Stone soup has turned out to be one of the more interesting stories because it's morphed over the years. I think we're 10 years into stone soup at this point. And I had this wild notion. I was thinking, I don't know, you know those science fiction books that are like, there's books 6, 7, and 8 and so on, and then they do the prequel? Well, I was thinking, what's the prequel to stone soup? Why was there a famine? And what was that all about? Why were people starving? So for those of you who don't know the story, it starts out, there was a village and the people were starving in the village. And I thought, well, what's the prequel? What happened? So if we're using education as the metaphor, what has happened in education? And what are we starving for in education? What's the famine in education? What is it that we're yearning for in education that's not present? And why is that? And who created it? And so on. So the prequel needs to be written. I think there's a lot of material there. So in Stone Soup, while this village is starving, a shaman comes. And I was also thinking it could be a Shaw woman too. So I figured to go gender neutral, it'll be a Shaw person. Showed up. And one of the prerequisites to learning is to welcome the stranger. The stranger is what's not present that needs to come into the community for the community to transform itself. And so this stranger shows up in the community and noticing that everybody's starving. And comes into the center of the village and says, I know how we can feed everybody. So the first element in the transformation has to be that the village has to be curious. So I think one of the three things that perhaps that is the cause of the famine is a lack of curiosity. A lack of curiosity about who our students are that we're attempting to bring into the learning field, to the assumption that we know something that they need to know without knowing them. So I have a question. If we don't see them, how do they show up? If there's no curiosity on the part of the teacher, how can the students be present in the room if we're not curious about who they are? Otherwise, it's a one-size-fits-all that we're colonizing students with some idea about what we think they should know. So the people were curious. Who is this weird person that says that they know how to fix this situation? So the shaman says, I have a magic stone. So you'll notice you have a stone and a book. And the book, more about the book later, but the stone, everybody has a stone. So everybody here in the spirit of Chautauqua is the shaman or the Shaw woman or the Shaw person, is the magic person. So you showed up with a gift. And so as the story goes, he said, well, get a big pot, and this stone will make soup. You just need water, a pot, and fire. And in honor of Angelus, the fire is the creative fire, which he says requires no wood. So the creative fire is what we're going to use to heat up the pot. So all we need is the pot and the water, and we place the stone in the pot. So another element of that is showing up in the community, being welcomed by the community, and bringing your gift when you're not sure if it'll even be received by the community. So there's a vulnerability there. And maybe part of the famine is that we've forgotten our vulnerability. We've forgotten as teachers how to be vulnerable. Because one of the things that I've been learning is the more that we are our authentic selves, the more vulnerable we are in the classroom, the more trust we build with our students. To admit when we're wrong, to admit when we don't know, to be curious, to be able to hold dissent when it shows up. When somebody's got a different idea than you have. And I am blessed at Mount Madonna with students who will show up even in their dissent. And how do you hold that? Because while we say we want our students to speak truth to power, wait till they do it and see how comfortable you feel. Right? And that becomes a recurring theme in the classroom. So putting the stone into the pot and said, all right, now everybody sit down and we're going to make soup. And so there's another element, I think, that may be lacking, which is patience in the classroom. And we've gotten into this maniacal metric of measuring everything, assuming that somehow the measurement is actually going to improve things. So we keep taking the cake out of the oven to see if it's risen, you know. How does that work? Well, maybe you need to let it cook a while. We've got to be patient. So I learned a wonderful thing from Samdang Rinpoche a year or so ago, and we went to interview him. And we asked him about education, and he said, well, the Buddha said 3 things about the teacher. 3 things that the teacher needs to do. First is to remove the fear in the student. First is to remove the fear in the student. And I thought, what an interesting thing to start with. So without safety and without trust, there can't be learning. Second is to communicate knowledge. Okay, we got that one. Third is not to give up until the student learns. So we sit down and the pot is boiling and the stone is doing whatever the stone does, and the shaman says, you know what really makes the soup good is if somebody had a carrot. And one of the villagers says, I have a couple of carrots under the house. I put them under the house because they were no good by themselves and I was saving them. And I'll go get them. And so they come and they bring the couple of carrots and they drop them in. And as the story goes on, the shaman says, well, you know what would really be good would be a potato, if anybody, and somebody says, yes, I have a potato, I was saving the potato because it was no good all by itself. So the potato comes and goes into the pot, as do the leeks and the turnips. And by the time everybody has brought the gift that they were holding in exile and put it into the pot, there is this magic soup that was sufficient to feed the village, and it fed the village for a long, long time. So the other part about the educational experience is how do we bring the gifts forward? How do we see the gift that we're supposed to be nourishing in the student as teachers? And where is how do we authentically call our students forth as they are with their gifts? And so maybe in the story itself is the prequel of what was missing that needed to be added in order to end the famine. And this question about what is the gift that I'm holding in abeyance because I'm afraid that it won't be received if I bring it. And I don't think this relegates to students. I think this relegates to all of us as students, whether we're teaching or imagine that we're students, is what is the gift that I could bring forth that I've held in abeyance because I wasn't sure that it would be received? Or what were the gifts that I withheld? How did I not show up authentically as myself because the context of the classroom was not safe for me to do that? I think everybody possibly has a story about that. So authenticity, curiosity, and vulnerability, perhaps that was part of what was absent, that was creating this context in which the village was starving. The picture is not entirely bleak because there are teachers, and every teacher, I believe, deeply cares about what they do. And all learning is contextual, and there's a narrative about learning that sweeps across the land and, in fact, around the world. And the subversive orthodoxy that exists in the classroom, I think, is millions of teachers around the world who are existing within the orthodoxy of the existing narrative about school, and yet, as teachers, are engaged in a kind of subversion of bringing humanity into that context. So it's a gray. It's not a black or white, it's a gray. So the opening ritual that we have, which is a ritual designed for the ritually impaired. It's a very safe ritual. You have your stone, and there are some markers around the circles which we can share that we'll write on the stone. And so I was thinking that we have two things that I think I would be really curious about to know about each and every person in the room. And one is this initial story of what is the invitation that I've been waiting for, that I haven't received, to bring forth the gift that I've held in abeyance. So it's about that inner fire of what I could do if I knew I couldn't fail. What gift would I bring forward? And so on one side of the stone, a word or a phrase or whatever you can fit on the stone. On the other side of the stone is, what is the question or challenge that I am carrying about my relationship with education? So if you're a teacher, you may have a question. I don't know if I can fit mine onto the stone, but I'm going to try. So what is the question that you're bringing into the room with you? And it can relate to learning or not, or any essential question that you're bringing with you, a word that would signify that. So we can write hieroglyphically. So on one side of the stone, right? What is the gift that if I knew I couldn't fail or I was invited to bring what I bring, that I've held in abeyance? And the other side is, what's the question or the challenge that I'm bringing with me today? Because when the shaman came into the village, the shaman didn't bring an answer. The shaman brought a question that invited questions. The vulnerability of taking a risk that it would be the collective that would end the famine rather than the heroic leader. Because without the participation of the whole village, the famine couldn't end. And so what I believe we're gathered here today to do is to be the village that is required, the community that's required to explore the questions, to find whatever our next step in the engagement is. And the power is always in the questions, not in the answers. And so as we go into small groups, the emphasis is always going to be on listening with curiosity. Would you all be willing to engage in that? Oh, when you're done writing on your stone, this is the risky part of the ritual. You have to get up and place it in there, in the circle. If you can't do that, just put it in your pocket. We'll get it from you later, okay? And I wonder if we could have some music to ease us along the road. Wonderful.